If you've ever found yourself spiraling down a late night rabbit hole of what am I meant to do and why haven't I found it yet? And let's be honest, who hasn't? Then you're in the right place. I'm Theresa White, career clarity expert and 5-time certified career coach, and I'm here to help you navigate the question of how to find a career that truly lights you up. On Career Clarity Unlocked, we're all about those light bulb moments. I'm talking to people who are still trying to figure out what they're meant to do, coaching them live to reach that magical, yes, this is it moment. And we'll also hear from those who've already found their dream careers and figure out exactly how they did it. Whether you're looking for inspiration or actionable advice on finding a career you love, I've got you covered. Time to unlock some career clarity. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Career Clarity Unlocked. Today, we're going to talk about this new trend you keep hearing about everywhere. It's called quiet cracking. Now, what does quiet cracking feel like? A lot of times people describe this to me as waking up in the morning, feeling so exhausted, even after a full night's sleep. Or feeling like, yeah, I'm still performing well, I'm hitting the deadlines, I'm showing up to meetings, but inside just feeling completely empty and like something is breaking. A lot of people also tell me that the tasks that used to light them up kind of feel pointless now. That spark is gone and it just feels like surviving the day. And a lot of times these people feel very invisible. And it's like your energy is leaking out day by day. Nothing is replenishing it. But kind of really no one at work notices, because people are still getting their work done. Someone I talked earlier today just said to me, I used to care so much and I'm still doing the same work, but now I just want to make it through the day without falling apart. And I wonder if you have ever felt like you are slowly breaking. Even though everything on the outside more or less seems fine. And what is happening when you are actually doing everything right on the surface, but inside you still feel like you're falling apart? That's what we call quiet cracking. It is a silent epidemic in our current workplace. Quiet cracking is the slow unraveling of an employee's emotional and psychological well-being without there being any dramatic breakdown or rebellion against it. So it is not the same as quiet quitting, the trend we had a couple of years ago, where people started to draw really clear boundaries and check out on purpose. Quiet cracking is different and it is much worse because it is when your spirit is breaking. And most of the time, people can't even speak up about it. It is what happens when you feel stuck, when you feel unsupported, and you're too afraid to leave because the job market feels like a dead end. And my point of view on quiet cracking is that this is absolutely not about workers being lazy or weak or they're not speaking up enough. But this is about a system that is actively breaking people in slow motion. It's this profit-first model of work that is crushing too many people. And it's squeezing out every last drop of creativity, energy, and joy. And companies call that efficiency. And this is more than just bad management. It really is a culture that glorifies burnout, ignores mental health completely, and punishes vulnerability. And I want to be so clear that quiet cracking is absolutely not a personal failure, but that it is a systematic betrayal of what work is supposed to be. In 2025, we've seen more workers burn out than ever. Layoffs are happening all over the place. Wages are flat. AI is replacing people, and employees are hanging in by a very thin thread. So many people want to leave, want to get out of it, but they feel like they can't. The market is super shaky and it feels so risky to make a move. And the worst part is that companies have no idea that their top talent is breaking down silently under the weight of it all. And if they have an idea, they often don't care. So this problem is so much bigger than any one single person. It is really a growing crisis that is in plain sight, but we're not talking about enough. So in this episode, we're going to break down exactly what quiet cracking is. We're going to dig into why it is spreading so fast right now, especially under our current economic and political reality. We're going to talk about how toxic, profit-obsessed workplaces are making things worse, and why AI, layoffs, and false promises are pushing people to the brink. I'll also be sharing with you stories from the front lines, stories I hear all the time from people in my network and from my clients of what this looks like in real life. And we're going to talk about what research says about the cost of ignoring it. We're going to be talking about solutions as well. Because if you know me, I'm very action oriented. I wouldn't just throw all this at you and be like, well, good luck with figuring this out. I will provide you with actionable things that you can do to push back, to protect yourself, and to take back your energy, your voice, and our future. So if you've been slowly unraveling, if you feel stuck and depleted, if you lead a team where you see those signs, or if you know someone who's impacted by it, then this episode is for you. If you're new here, I'm Theresa White, career clarity expert and 5-time certified career coach, and the only coach who guarantees you career clarity in just 30 days. I am the coach behind over 600 women who found careers that feel like pinch me. I am getting paid to do this. Clients consistently describe my sessions as epiphanies and an answer to questions they've been asking for years. And I have seen with my own eyes how this quiet cracking phenomenon is playing out in my clients. I see it in companies and in our culture. So by the end of this episode, I want you to know how to spot quiet cracking in yourself or in others that you care about. And you'll understand the deeper systematic forces driving this epidemic so that you can stop blaming yourself and start making a real plan forward. And most importantly, you'll walk away with hope and tools, because quiet cracking is not the end of the road. It's the wake-up call that we really need to take things in our hands and do something. Because we don't have to accept a version of work that breaks us. No, we deserve to thrive, not just survive at work. And there is a better way to work, to live, and to lead. And so today we're going to talk about how to start finding that. Now, let's dive deeper into what exactly quiet cracking is. How does this look like? And you have to picture it as the gradual breakdown of a person's motivation, well-being, and their spirit at work, without there being any super obvious signs or confrontations. And I already said it is very different from quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is intentional and it is visible. It is people doing the bare minimum to reclaim work-life balance. But quiet cracking, on the other hand, is involuntary. It's not a choice someone makes. It happens to you. It is internal and it is invisible. It's a silent erosion of energy, creativity, and emotional connection to work. Employees experiencing quiet cracking, they're still performing, but they are disengaged, disillusioned, and emotionally unraveling beneath the surface. And this is very similar to burnout. But what the difference to burnout is that burnout is often the final result of quiet cracking. Whereas quiet cracking is the slow motion path to getting to the burnout stage. And unlike burnout, which is widely recognized, quiet cracking often goes unnoticed because people are still functioning. So where does this quiet cracking come from? Well, as you can guess, it is chronic overwork without meaningful recognition or reward, often unclear job expectations, and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger workloads, which the layoffs play into because you're just suddenly expected to do the work of 3 people. Also feeling stuck because the job market is uncertain and quitting just doesn't feel like a safe option. We're really in a time of big economic instability where people want to get out of their jobs, but they can't risk losing income or healthcare. Adding to that is the rapid AI implementation and automation that makes people feel often irrelevant or replaceable, or that their jobs are at risk. And all of this happening is under the current political climate that is eroding safety in the workplace. Just in July 2025, the US Department of Labor under the Trump administration proposed eliminating and rewriting over 60 workplace rules, including stripping wages and overtime protections of millions of care workers, rolling back safety standards in hazardous industries, and reducing regulatory oversight by OSHA in certain professional fields. And that's just 3 out of the 60. And then you're seeing the mass layoffs happening everywhere. Stagnant wages increasing the sense that more is being demanded with less support. And of course, that is resulting in diminished hope for advancement, fulfillment, or just even basic stability at work. When I talk to employees and my clients who are impacted by the quiet cracking, who are experiencing that on a day-to-day basis, I often see that they're still meeting their deadlines. They're still performing well, but they often feel like they're doing all of that on autopilot. Their creativity is hugely impacted, and they often can't remember the last time they felt excited about a task. They feel very emotionally detached, often numb, even when something good happens. And their communication is often at work more robotic or transactional. There's no spark, no initiative. They remember that they used to be the person that was spark, that took initiative, that was creative, but that somehow just seems gone now. And everything, even the small tasks, feel like this huge mountain to climb. And they dread work every day. They wake up, they have the Sunday scaries, and they wake up with the slow, quiet ache that just never seems to go away. And they want to care, but they just cannot find the energy to do so anymore. A lot of times they tell themselves, well, it doesn't matter what I do anyway, and no one notices anyway, I'm just surviving. And the hard thing, this isn't just impacting people at work. That is impacting people at home too. They get home feeling really drained, exhausted, irritable. They don't have energy left to spend time with their family, for their relationships, for self-care. It's really impacting every aspect of their lives. And managers aren't even noticing most of the time, because it's not that sudden drop in performance that would make a manager like, oh, what's going on here? Because the people keep showing up. They often smile in meetings, they hit their targets, they answer their emails, and they're doing that because they are terrified to lose their job if they don't keep up that facade. They are so scared that they're going to be impacted by the next layoff. They have to keep pretending everything is fine. So what's happening is really under the surface. It's emotional and intentional. And it is not playing out on the surface how you would see it in absenteeism or missed deadlines. And the people that are most prone to quiet cracking are the high performers and the high achievers, because they're already so used to pushing through without asking for help and just keep going no matter what. And I want to be so clear here that not a single person is the problem here. You're not meant to live and work under the conditions you're being dealt with. This truly is a systemic failure of modern work. And quiet cracking is just the symptom that we're seeing now. We see it all over the place that companies are running people into the ground while preaching resilience and grit. But the reality is that people are cracking because the system is rigged against their well-being. And this is such a clear signal that the old ways of working, where we glorify burnout, ignore mental health, prioritize people over profit, those are breaking down. And it is happening all over the place, across industries, titles, and experience levels. So I want to now get really honest about the systemic dysfunction behind it and how our current economy and leadership are making it worse by the day instead of better. Quiet cracking is about being a human being, which we all happen to be, in a system designed to extract labor, creativity, and energy with no intention of giving anything meaningful back. Sounds pretty bad, right? Now, if you've been in a history class before, like most of us have, this might bring back memories of the Industrial Revolution, the late 1700s to mid 1800s. At that time, this was really the big shift when human labor was commodified. And human labor was valued only for how much output it could produce in the shortest time at the lowest cost. And it designed a whole system around extracting maximum labor value and return as little compensation or protection as possible. And what we're seeing today reflects that same exploitative foundation, just with modern tools and language. So instead of the assembly line, today's workplace has replaced physical machinery with email, KPIs, dashboards, and AI. But it's really the same thing. Everyone is expected to work faster, to do more with less, be available 24/7, don't complain, and just be lucky that you're even having a job. And after the brutal conditions of the Industrial Revolutions, many countries, particularly the West, really implemented massive reforms to protect workers. But now in the 21st century, we're seeing a troublesome regression, or at least a plateau, and in some ways, actually a steep decline in actual worker well-being. It really feels like we are sliding backwards in so many ways, but I don't even want to get into the broader political picture here. But yes, we are sliding backwards, not because we don't know or because we forgot how to protect workers. No, but because systems of power have recalibrated to extract more value with fewer obligations through the gig work, AI, deregulation, and eroded social contracts. It is a profit-first module that is eating people alive. Someone recently described it to me as like being in a machine that's expected to run forever without maintenance, but then we're blaming it when it breaks down. Right? Like imagine you're driving your car for 10 years at the highest speed possible, getting everything out of it can, but never taking it for an oil change. You can't be upset when it breaks down. That's what is to be expected. That is what happens to employees. And a lot of that is in hands of companies and management. So we're seeing so much. Every day I now talk to someone who's experienced a toxic workplace culture. And we're talking micromanagement, unclear expectations, always on cultures, 24/7 expectations that obviously produce chronic stress. And then poor leadership often confuses compliance with engagement and doesn't even see that employees are saying yes, but they're screaming and falling apart on the inside. There's no psychological safety in workplaces. Asking for help often feels like a weakness, and vulnerability gets punished. And AI is also playing into that, even though I see huge benefits to AI to also help with that. And we're going to get into this later. A lot of times right now, AI is marketed as a helper, but in reality, it's being used to cut costs and increase output. And it's not reducing anyone's workload. People are just expected to do more and faster and even better because AI can now help you. And then we have all these surveillance tools powered by AI, which are just mind-boggling, like mouse trackers, keystroke monitoring, productivity scores. And those increase pressure even more and absolutely kill and erode trust. Now, let's talk about wages. Because while expectations are skyrocketing, workloads are skyrocketing, inflation is hitting hard, wages are not keeping up with that. And it is workers who are actually absorbing the cost while companies still record high profits. And I want to share a super crazy statistic with you. CEOs now earn 285 times to 632 times more than the average worker. This is insane. We're not talking about a pay gap anymore. This is a canyon. And these numbers are coming from AFL-CIO, the Executive Pay Watch report, as well as Fortune. So if you're watching this on video, you can actually see the numbers. And just to spell out what this means, if you earn 100K annually, then how much does the CEO make if he makes 285 times that? So at that ratio, the CEO makes 28.5 million per year. And on the upper end, if you take this by 632 times, the CEO makes 63.2 millions per year. Now, don't ever tell me again, there is no budget to increase employee salaries. And there's no reason to delay bonuses, to cut bonuses, to deny promotions, but demand more and more of your employees while CEOs are making that kind of money. Now, looking at even more data, in 2025, and right now it's September 2025, right now we have 806,000 layoffs reported in the US. That is more than we've seen in 2024, the entire year. According to Gallup, there is a loss of 8.8 trillion in global productivity due to disengagement and burnout. So this isn't just hurting employees, this is also hurting companies. And burnout alone costs us 322 billion annual in lost productivity, with another 125 to 190 billion in healthcare costs. And a really interesting statistic looking at AI is that 88% of top AI performers are reporting burnout, and they are twice as likely to consider quitting. Disengaged workers are actually 40% less likely to go above and beyond, and 30% less effective in customer-facing roles. So that impact is enormous. It's not just one person that isn't feeling good. This is impacting employees and companies all over the country, all over the world. And if we zoom out even more and look at the political conditions that we're under in 2025 in the US, we're seeing massive deregulation. Workplace safety rules are gutted, labor protections are being rolled back. We have huge pro-business, anti-worker policies. As I already mentioned, we have cutbacks in OSHA, pro-corporate legal protections, and union busting practices are encouraged. And then we're seeing the immigration restrictions and these insane ICE raids. And then you have the tariffs, and all of that is destabilizing key industries, causing what? Uncertainty and layoffs, contributing to this trend even more. And as we all know, DEI and mental health initiatives are defunded, dismissed, politically attacked. We're making life harder and then taking the resources away from people that would help them. And I talk to people every day that are afraid to take sick leave, to use PTO, to ask for accommodations, even while they're falling apart. But they're so afraid because they feel being replaced at any moment. So they have to keep quiet even as they are cracking. And the result of all that is that workers are exposed, unsupported, and afraid. And all of that traps them in jobs that quietly erode them. And the reality we live in is a profit-first thinking and a people-last reality. Businesses are obsessed with short-term gains. And that means cutting staff, raising expectations, and ignoring well-being. And that efficiency myth that they're operating under means trimming labor costs to look good on paper while destroying morale, creativity, long-term viability. And yes, shareholders win, In the short run, employees suffer and entire teams are gutted just so the executives can collect their bonuses. And we all know that this is not sustainable. Feeling miserable at work is not just the modern reality. It's insane. But this is the result of deliberate, systematic choices and actions. And we've normalized the suffering in the name of resilience, or we call it hustle or grit or ambition. But all it is actually exploitation. And when you're starting to experience quiet cracking, that is your body and your brain saying, like, this isn't working. That is a signal that something needs to change. Because this system we live in destroys innovation, it increases attrition, it corrodes company culture. This goes way beyond the emotional toll. And as we know, exploitation isn't good for business in the long run. We've seen it in organizations that ignore well-being, that they eventually pay the price. They lose talent, they lose reputation, and eventually they collapse. So now that I threw all of that at you, let's talk about what we can actually do when you're stuck in a system that is not going to change overnight. How do we survive that culture that's quietly cracking everyone so that you can still protect your sanity, your purpose, and your future? And even though no single person can fix this entire system tomorrow, I so wish we could. There are things we can actually do, and we can start doing them today. And that's what I want to talk about next. So instead of focusing on all the things that are outside of our power, even though it's important to be aware of them, let's now focus on what's within our power. What can you do to protect your energy, to reconnect to purpose, and to plan your next step forward strategically? There are things that you can control, even when the environment around you feels very much out of control. And given our current political climate, oh my God, let's talk about out of control. Not getting off topic here. So let's start with number one, setting boundaries and actually honoring them. If this is hard for you, watch my podcast episode last week. It's going to be a huge eye opener to shift from people pleasing to being assertive and setting boundaries. So setting boundaries. One, stop answering emails or Slack messages after hours unless in an absolute emergency where it is necessary. Say no to extra projects or emotional labor that's not in your scope. Communicate your limits. You can let your manager know, I will not be available after 6 p.m. Or when given some new task, I need 48 hours to review that before the meeting. You really need to start protecting your non-work hours like they are sacred, because they truly are. And I know that we high achievers are so driven to overperform and do more, and we're likely to work overtime. But honestly, no matter how much we give to a company, when a layoff happens, a merger, acquisition, company restructuring, you're out the door. No matter how many hours of overtime you worked, no matter how many soccer games you missed with your kids, they don't care. So you need to start to make sure your time off is sacred and is not impacted by what's going on at work as much as you can. And on the days that you can't control that, be gentle with yourself, because this is not your fault. Then try to block focus time on your calendar to get real work done and avoid unnecessary meetings. I just talked with one of my clients today. She blocked out 1 hour of focus time on her calendar because she really needed to get stuff done. It wasn't to have fun or go for a coffee. No, she needed an hour to actually really get stuff done and needed an hour of non-interruption. And she got chewed out by her manager for it. It's insane what's going on in the workplace. But try to do it. If you put it on your calendar, your manager chews you out, that's a different conversation. And that is really then a toxic workplace. Most companies will at least allow you to block out an hour on your calendar for focus time. Also, take your lunch break away from your screen. Take that time. You really, really need that time away from the screen, as hard as it is when the workload is piling up on top of you. And then use your PTO, even if you're not going anywhere. Rest is what you need in this time. It's necessary to survive what you're going through. And I also really recommend documenting mistreatment. Keep a record, and even if you just email that to yourself and email it to your personal email, okay, of unreasonable workload increases, emotional manipulation, disrespect, all the big stuff that's happening, write it down. Date, time, what happened. And if things escalate, this is the documentation that can protect you legally or support your case if HR gets involved. Use that as data, reflect on it. This is something where you can look objectively at, is this what a workplace should look like when you look at your documentation? And that reminds you that, no, you're not the problem. What's going on at your workplace is. I also highly recommend, and this is a hard one when your energy is just completely sapped out through your job, but find micro moments of joy. Whatever it is that brings you joy. Do you like reading a book, cooking, music, movement, creative hobbies, sports? Whatever it is that reminds you that you're more than your job, even if you start with 15 minutes a week. Maybe there is 15 minutes in your lunch break. If you have a half an hour lunch break and you can 15 minutes spend on eating and 15 minutes on just doing something just because it is joyful. That is enough to fill your energy tank to make it through the rest of the day. And then also try to reconnect with your identity outside of your role and your job title. You are a full human being. You're not just the employee or that's one role that you're performing at work. You're so much more than that. Slowly start reclaiming those aspects of yourself, because that will also give you the energy to make it through those hard work days. And then there's community. And even though quiet cracking does look different for each individual, we know it's happening all over the country or even all over the world. So you are not alone. And finding your people can be incredibly life-changing. I highly recommend building a peer support group inside or outside of work. And I can see that in the Career Clarity Formula, my coaching community, how powerful it is when women connect with women and support each other. And just have someone that can lend an ear, motivate them, hold them accountable, whatever it is that they need on that day. They know that they're not doing this alone and that they're not alone in this. And there's others who totally get it. It's life-changing. And then also, if you have coworkers that you trust, start casual check-ins with them too. So chances are you're not the only one impacted by that. And ask them, like, how are you really doing? Like, really, what's going on for you? To create community and reduce isolation. If there's some openness in your company, I recommend suggesting employee-led wellness groups, mental health days, or even anonymous feedback tools. In whatever way employees can communicate to the leadership team that we need more support in wellness, mental health, feedback, make that known. And it's really powerful when you can get the team on board and collectively raise concerns or push back instead of just doing that as an individual. So informal organizing, like taking lunch breaks together, can be a huge lever in resisting toxic cultures in very subtle but effective ways. And don't be afraid to push back. I'm going to refer back to my episode last week. I'm going to refer back to last week's episode. That was episode 64, The Hidden Trauma Behind People Pleasing at Work, where you can learn actual strategies on how to push back that doesn't feel super scary. And you want to start using those tools when leadership quietly promotes people with no raise and just overloads you with no additional support. Don't just silently nod and say, okay, call it out, call it for what it is. And you can use language like, this isn't sustainable, or I need clarity on expectations, or what support will be provided if my responsibilities increase. And very much depending on the relationship you have or can have with your manager, getting them involved in what's going on can be beneficial. So request one-on-one discussions to really engage your manager and make them see what's going on if you trust them enough. And you can use language like, I've been experiencing signs of burnout, or I want to really re-engage and be really invested in this work again, but I need the support to do this. And when you approach your manager, always come from a collaborative standpoint. If you approach it as a confrontation and be like, you're giving me X, Y, and Z, and this sucks, it's hard to come to a compromise or support. But when you come from collaboration and say, I know our department wants to achieve X, Y, and Z, but in order for us to do this, we need clarity, we need coaching, we need rebalancing of our workload. That gets them on the same team and you can push towards something together. But if your manager is part of the problem, then find another trusted ally. Maybe that's a skip level leader, maybe an HR contact, maybe a peer mentor, whoever you feel safe having those conversations with and sharing what's really going on for you. I also encourage you, and this is actually the first thing I would love for all of you to do today or tomorrow, or at least this week, get really clear on your role and the expectations in your role, and ask yourself what's actually expected of me in this season and what can be deprioritized. And when they put a higher workload on you, don't be afraid to react something with a phrase like, yes, I'm happy to take that on, but I want to make sure we're aligned on priorities. I currently have A, B, and C on my plate, and they're all due on A, B, and C dates. Could you help me understand what should be deprioritized or shifted to make room for this new task? That way, you're clearly communicating everything that is on your plate and making it clear, yes, I can take on something else, but there's something needs to give. And you're inviting your manager to collaboratively help you figure that out. And if your expectations have grown without you being given a different title or a raise, start to have those conversations too. And make it really clear for your manager what your responsibilities are, what you've achieved, and how that's been impacting the company and the department. And then ask for a title or the raise that you deserve. And the next thing I want you to do is, after you've really gotten clear about, okay, what is my role? What's the essence of my role and my expectations? And what is everything else I'm expected to do? And then delegate 20% of low impact work or cut it to free up mental space. So this week, I want you to be clear about what your role is, what your expectations is, and find 20% that you can cut or delegate. That will free up enough time for your mental space to get into a better place. Once you have that extra mental space, it might just be a little bit of a window, but it's at least a bright light somewhere. Start with upskilling strategically. And I'm huge in being strategic when you upskill. And you start by getting really clear, what does my next professional step look like? Where do I want to be next? If that is a big question mark for you, you got to come talk to me. I'll help you figure that out. But once you're really clear, okay, this is what I want to do next. Now, what are the gaps I need to fill, or where can I upskill to position me as the ideal candidate for those roles, for where I want to be next? We are in a competitive labor market, so you need to take those steps to really position you as the top candidate. And it's possible. Once you're really clear, then you invest in filling those gaps, or in really setting yourself apart from others by maybe learning AI tools, leadership frameworks, communication skills, whatever the specifics are that will future-proof your career. Another thing to look into is, if the company culture overall is one that you feel aligned with, but your department or your team is really suffering or suffocating you, Look for lateral or even internal moves within the organization that might give you some of your energy back, that are better than where you are right now. Maybe not the perfect ultimate step, but it gets you in a better place, frees up more mental space where you can now have more energy to focus on what you really want to do next. And then look into recession resistant industries. I do have a guide on my website that you can download about choosing the right industry for you. And there is information about how recession proof certain industries are and what would be most aligned with what is important to you. Last but not least, highly recommend seeking out a coach. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a career coach myself, but also due to my own experience trying to navigate that without a coach and also having invested in coaching myself. And it is night and day on how huge of a shift you're able to make when you have an effective coach on your side. It is effective in getting clarity, resetting your energy, prioritizing, planning your next move. And none of that means that you need to quit your job tomorrow, but it's about a strategic exit plan to get you to where you want to be next. And coaches, good coaches, will provide you with a safe and confidential space. Emotional safety is huge to me. It needs to be a judgment-free space where you're accepted exactly as you are. No matter if you had the worst day or the best day, you can come in as you are in getting the support you need. You need to receive tailored career strategy, so nothing generic, but something that actually works for you in this very moment of time. Accountability, emotional resilience, and guidance on strategic upskilling, strategic networking, setting boundaries, job search strategies. And most importantly, a good coach will really help you to stop spinning in circles and actually take effective steps forward that get you closer to where you want to be. And I know I hear from people all the time that I can't quit. I can't start over. I can't take a pay cut. I can't. My life depends on this paycheck. And I get that so much, especially given the job market in 2025. But that doesn't make you powerless. That doesn't make you have to stay in this role forever. There are things you can do, right? To recap, you can emotionally distance yourself from work without completely disengaging, but just putting a little bit buffer in there. You can also mentally label this job as temporary and start planting seeds and taking steps for your exit. I'm huge on exit planning, of being really intentional that the steps you take don't put you at risk or in jeopardy, but on a strategic plan into a better role and a better place and a healthier company culture. And you can also prioritize your health, your relationships, and your upskilling right now. So anytime you feel stuck or you have that language in your head that's like, oh, I hate it here, but I'm stuck, there's nothing I can do, rephrase that for yourself and say, I'm gathering information, or I'm preparing for a pivot, or I'm choosing where my energy goes. And just those small rephrases is a beautiful form of resistance. And I guarantee you, you will not be there forever. I have my clients landing amazing roles with companies doing the right thing, caring about their employees every week. It is possible. Even it seems so hard, with the right strategy and the right support, it is possible. So you don't have to stay stuck in the survival mode forever. And you can change your trajectory. One conversation at a time, one boundary setting at a time, one coaching session at a time will get you on the road to being in a much better place. So now that you've got some actionable tools, I want to zoom out one more time and talk about this from a system level perspective. Because now we talked about what we can do individually to change. But over time, we need to work together to change the system. So let's talk about what's possible there. As we uncovered in this episode, quiet cracking isn't just hurting the individuals it's impacting. It's quietly breaking everything. And if we don't change course soon, the consequences won't be small. Because we're talking about failing companies, burned out sectors, and fractured society. This is a slow motion collapse, but it is happening, and we're seeing it happening right now. And on manager and leadership teams, it creates this cascading failure as team guidance, mentorships, and innovation dries up. And there's no talent that isn't quietly cracking that can fill that hole. Companies are losing institutional knowledge, momentum, and morale. And oftentimes the companies don't realize it until it's too late. And I want to share an example with you from the Greed Center. The Greed Center, of course, I'm going to call it the Greed Center. It's the Greer Center, but might as well be called Greed Center. It is spelled Greer, and it is a for-profit health service company that was based in Pennsylvania. It was insane. The story was very insane. They forced staff into relentless 16-hour shifts in order to cut costs and boost profits. Employees burned out, they emotionally collapsed, they were unable to provide proper care, and that resulted in serious safety violations. Residents were harmed, and whistleblowers were silenced. In the end, all of that led to multiple arrests, to state investigations, and lawsuits followed. Liberty, the company behind the Greer Center, was very damaged. It lost its reputation, it lost state contracts, and everything they gained financially was gone in the end. And this is a perfect example of what happens when companies treat employees like machines. Eventually, the system will eat itself. So I truly believe that we need a radical change on a system level. The system must be rebuilt around people and not around profits. Because when you put people first, profits will follow. But when you ignore people, it's going to collapse in the end. Companies can no longer afford to pretend burnout isn't happening, where it's just some lone individuals. No, this is an infrastructure failure. In this moment, really demands the reinvention of work. We need human-centered, trauma-informed, and equity-driven workplaces. We need policies that protect well-being and cultures that value humanity. Anything less than that is just going to be rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. We've done that. The good thing is there are amazing companies out there doing the right thing and caring. And I want to shout them out because we need more of them. Companies like Hilton, Delta, Capital One, UC Davis Health, the wonderful company. They are recognized for putting employees first, and they are thriving. They are known for mental health services, providing paid sick leave, flexible schedules, DEI commitments, humane workloads. And the amazing things is that these companies outperform competitors. They're the ones attracting talent. They're the ones fostering loyalty. Not despite employee well-being, but because of it. And that is where the future is. And those companies, they're not some fantasy that's not realistic. No, they're just a few examples of what's possible when we stop pretending people are robots. And Laura on my team wrote an absolute beautiful blog on this, and I highly recommend for you to check it out. It is on our Substack. On Substack is Theresa Careerbloom, substack.com, and it is called 5 Steps to Leave a Toxic Workplace and Build a Career that Supports Your Mental Health. Must read. And I really want you to know that this is not normal. Quiet cracking is not normal. We do not have to live like this. There is a better way to work, to lead, and to live. And when I'm saying radical change is needed, that doesn't mean this is unrealistic, but it does mean that we need to stop. We need to refuse to normalize work that is destroying us. So here's what I want you to remember and take away from this episode. Quiet cracking has nothing to do with failing. And it has nothing to do with you doing something wrong. This is the result and the symptom of the system we live and work in. And if your energy is drained or your creativity is gone, or you're wondering why you feel numb, even though you're still showing up and doing your work, that's not a you problem. That's a system problem. And the system is quietly unraveling people from the inside out. But the most important part is that just because it is happening to you doesn't mean this is going to be your destiny. You're not alone in this. We know that. Quiet cracking is happening everywhere. Just Google the quiet cracking trend and you will see it popping up all over the platforms. It's happening in every industry at every level. We're seeing it from senior executive to new grads. I talk to so many brilliant, high-achieving, deeply caring, committed people that are all slowly burning out in silence because the system doesn't make space for humanity. The system thinks they're robots. And the more we exploit them, the more we're going to get. It's just not what's just not, but obviously that's not working. And so many workplaces are not aware of it until it's too late. But the good thing is you now know you are aware. And that means that you get to choose a different path for yourself. You can start a plan to move out of the quiet cracking or whatever you experience at work and towards something that's better. And again, there are companies doing the right things. There are amazing company cultures out there. Yes, they're the minority, but they exist and they're hiring. And you can be a part of that. If this episode hit home for you and you're thinking, yeah, that resonates and this is something I'm going through, please book a free career clarity call with me. Yes, you get to speak to me directly for free because this is what I do. I help people just like you to go from stuck, exhausted, and directionless to being energized, clear, and connected to the work that actually lights them up. No matter if you're mid-level or senior level or somewhere in between and just barely hanging on, I will help you map out a real aligned next step, no matter how stuck you feel today. The link to set up a call with me is in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know this is a heavy topic, but talking about it is honestly how we heal, how we grow, and how we can take back control. I hope to see you back here next week on Career Clarity Unlocked. And until then, please take care of yourself, protect your energy, and know that you deserve work that is truly fulfilling, energizing, and makes you come alive. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Career Clarity Unlocked. If you're feeling stuck in that what's next spiral and are ready to finally break free, let's chat. You can book your free career clarity call where we'll uncover what's really important to you, tackle any obstacles holding you back, and map out your best next step. Schedule your free 30-minute call today on careerbloomcoaching.com. And before you head out, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. If today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration, please leave a review. It really helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or on social media. Your support truly means the world. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.